Though they're not winning at the polls, Islamists, or people who want the country to implement Islamic law, are finding other ways to make their views known and their presence felt here in Indonesia's capital. This rally is against the Ahmadiyya, a minority group who consider themselves Muslim but are deemed heretical by religious leaders in Indonesia and other countries. Banning the Ahmadiyya has become a rallying point for fundamentalist groups who are pushing the government to uphold Islamic law in legislation, like the recent ban on pornography. The Ahmadiyya consider themselves Muslims, but they are under attack for their belief in another religious leader after Muhammad. This group of Ahmadis on Lombok Island have become refugees in their own country after they were attacked in their villages. This is where SARIM Ahmadi's house once stood. 3 years ago, he and 200 other Ahmadis were attacked right after a visiting religious leader came through the village.
He was leading a sermon in our village and told people that Ahmadiyya should be kicked out of the village. He said if people here can't do it, he'll ask people from outside the village to do it.
Soon after, SARIM says, a mob of people from his own village came and burned down his house and those of other Ahmadiyya villagers.
In this area were 2 houses. Now they are gone, burned down. They got machetes, and the police couldn't do anything but just firing in the air because the mob was so big.
The attacker got gasoline and threw it on the houses to light them on fire, and then our houses got burned down.
After a while living at the refugee shelter, Mastum returned to Kapatang village to work in her rice fields, even though she says some nights she is afraid to turn on the lights in her house because then the other villagers will know she's there.
If they're going to kill me, let them. This is my house, not someone else's house. We sold our assets to buy this land. That's why we want to stay. We're not living on other people's land.
Most of the villagers have taken shelter here, in the city, where the government moved them after their houses were burned down. But conditions are crowded, and the refugees remain in legal limbo, not registered as residents of their village or the city, which means they can't get ID cards or qualify for health care.
I can't tell you how difficult it is to live here. There are so many problems.
The refugees here would like to return to their home villages, but the local government says it can't protect them if they do. So they're still here after 3 years with no ID cards and no idea what's next, which has a lot of people worried about what this could mean for the rest of Indonesia's minorities.
I think one of the dangers is that there's going to be an increasing feeling among minorities that they're second-class citizens and that the Indonesian government doesn't protect them in the same way.
Sydney Jones analyzes Islam and politics in Indonesia for the International Crisis Group. She says conservative religious groups have learned how to influence the government through mobilizing popular support and finding channels of influence within the democratic system.
It's that certain groups on the extreme edges of society have figured out what issues can draw public support if manipulated in the right way. And I think this issue was manipulated.
Though most Muslim leaders condemn the violence against the Ahmadis, the ruling that they are heretical comes from Indonesia's highest religious leaders, the Indonesian ULEMAS Council.
Jadi mereka tidak mau bersama-sama dengan umat Islam yang lain.
They make the other Muslims uneasy. They don't want to get involved in religious and communal activities. If the Ahmadiyya didn't only pray among themselves, if they went to the mosque on Fridays and joined others, there wouldn't be a problem.
Religious leaders say the Ahmadis should come back into the fold of mainstream Islam. But these refugees, some who've had to move 8 times, say they'd rather give up their country than their faith. For World Focus, this is Jamila Trindle in Jakarta, Indonesia.